You know, I've never been asked to do a review to directly compare a device to another competing device, but well, that changes today. Thank you to NearStream for giving me their VM33, which is an interesting camera targeted toward content creators and people looking for, you know, an affordable solution to live streaming, including churches and things like that. It's been a very valuable little device that I've been using here in Churchland, but you got to have that infrastructure in place. And I think it's a great budget option that gives you a 10x optical zoom and a hybrid 40x zoom. At our medium-sized church over the past month, I found this to be a perfect option as a back of the auditorium stationary camera where I can use that optical zoom to my advantage. We've even used it on a gimbal for mobile shots, which is really nice too. Which brings me to the theme of today's video, which at first had me a little confused. Today, I'm going to review and compare the capabilities of the VM33 camera to that of the OBSbot Tail Air. Both are similar in how they're targeting their market, but in my opinion, they're both very different cameras. And so what I'll try to do as best as I can is compare both cameras and how they are similar with video and giving you examples of that, but also contrasting both of them so that you can better make a decision on which camera will fit your suitable needs, because that's really what it comes down to. Now, obviously, you can see the VM33 is a sizable camera, and that is because of the 10x optical zoom and the battery that it uses to give you a pretty extensive battery life, up to 8 hours, which I have tested up to at least 6 hours, and it has ran perfectly, no issues, and still had about 30% battery left. So I believe that 8 hours is pretty solid. Also, you can notice here across the top, it has an array of microphones for audio, the huge lens with the optical zoom, 10x shot optical zoom, a tally light, and it gives you an indicator of battery left using these LEDs. You have a 3.5 millimeter port here for audio. You have an SD card slot where you can record directly to an SD card, a nice big power button there, which if you single press will give you battery indicator if the camera is off. And then of course you have a USB-C slot here. Now this is USB-C 2.0. This gives you up to 1440p capability in recording and streaming, and up to, I think, 15 megabit for your bit rate, or 15,000 for your bit rate. But what I'll do now is I'll take this, the VM33, and I'll compare it directly to the capabilities of the Tail Air where they are similar. And then I will then kind of compare and contrast some of the capabilities that the VM33 has that the Tail Air doesn't, and vice versa. So let's get into the video. Okay, so this is both the Tail Air and the NearStream in UVC mode using USB, and they're at their max resolution. So for the Tail Air, obviously it cannot do 1440p, it's either 1080p or 4K. And for the NearStream, it's at 1440p. And they're at default filter settings and adjustment settings. So here I have the NearStream at default settings. Now you can only see the app here, right? So this is the app, and you can see everything is zeroed out and in auto. And then likewise, I have the same thing for the Tail Air, where you can see an OBSbot center. Everything is in full auto and standard image and exposure, HDR, all that's turned on just like with the NearStream. So I try to match them up as best as possible and give you what you would basically see out of the box. Now you can obviously see some differences in how they handle dynamic range and exposure, that sort of thing. And what I'll do next is I will actually record with the key lights off or in a very low setting, so you can kind of see what that looks like for both cameras and how they handle lighting. All right, so this is again UVC mode for both cameras. I have turned my key lights down to lowest setting, which is like 5%. They're barely on, but you can kind of see kind of a low light scenario. There is some daylight in here, and I do have backlighting for RGB and that sort of thing. But you get an idea of what this could look like for both cameras in UVC mode. Again, right here is the VM33, and to the left of you right now is the OBSbot Tail Air. So you can just get an idea of what they both look like. Again, I mean, considering what it is, they both look pretty good to me. But again, you can just tell some subtle differences between the cameras. Just looking at it, the Tail Air looks more natural. This is actually what the color of my shirt looks like, whereas the VM33 looks like there's just a little bit more saturation, even though it is in the default setting at 50%, just like the Tail Air is. One of the other key things that is important about these cameras that you need to know about is they are both wireless capable. They can use either wireless or PoE Ethernet to run an NDI signal or a wireless signal to your mobile device or whatnot. Now, currently I'm using NDI mode. Both of these are NDI capable. Now, key difference between the VM33 and NDI and the Tail Air and NDI is the NDI mode with VM33 is free. They automatically unlock it for you, whereas with the Tail Air, you actually have to pay for an NDI license, which I think is around $99 currently. So keep that in mind. That's going to add an additional $100 in cost if you intend on using Tail Air and NDI. It's nice that the VM33 gives that to you automatically. You don't have to worry about it. So right now, they're both running in NDI mode. Currently running, this is the NearStream, and then this is the Tail Air here left, NearStream on the right, and both in NDI mode, both sending max resolution. No other settings are changed previous to what I had. Basically everything's in full auto, but I've changed the mode to NDI mode. So 1440p is being sent with the NearStream, and with NDI mode on Tail Air, it's at 4K. Now, the only difference is with the Tail Air, I'm sending over PoE, and with the NearStream, I'm sending it over Wi-Fi, okay, because I do not have the PoE adapter for the NearStream, and unfortunately the PoE one that I have does not work. It's a proprietary thing. You have to buy their PoE adapter, which I think is $150. Okay. Tail Air, they have their own PoE adapter, and I think it's $69 you can buy, and it provides a USB charger port so you can use that PoE capability if you do not have a PoE switch. But if you have a PoE switch, then you just plug it in and there you go, you got the power, which then gives you charging capability to the Tail Air. Okay, so this is the picture. This is what they look like. Obviously, there's some little bit of freezing every now and then with the VM33. In OBS settings, I have it set to YUV2 in partial mode, and I'm using the experimental ultra low latency function so that there's no desyncing between the audio and the video. So you can kind of get an idea of what they both look like. This is the absolute most strain that you would see on, NDI mode in this. But this is what they both look like. You can make your own decision on what you think looks better. All right, so this is a more apples to apples comparison. Right now in NDI mode, both the Tail Air on the left, the VM33 on the right, are both Wi-Fi NDI at 1080p 30. They're at the experimental low, going through the exact same network, and literally they're right on top of each other. So the distances are the same. You can get an idea and just kind of take a look at the difference in the field of view between the Tail Air and the VM33. They are at the exact same distance. The Tail Air is just maybe, 9 inches higher. The lens is 9 inches higher off of the VM33, but you can kind of get an idea of what they both, look like at the same distance from each other. So obviously the VM33 field of view is less than the Tail Air, but you can get an idea what both of these look like in Wi-Fi NDI. And I'm sending about an 8,000 bit rate on the VM33. You can control that in the app, which is a really nice feature. Now, another thing that I would like to do now is compare what they both look like zoomed. Now, I'm only going to show you 4x in this next clip because that's the maximum zoom that the Tail Air can do. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so now both cameras are in NDI mode, and I'm going to zoom in on the NearStream to 4x. Now, keep this in mind. OBS has the ability with the NDI source properties. There's a pan tilt zoom option that you can activate, and you can use that to zoom the camera. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go into 4x. And here we go. So this is 4x mode. And let me see if I can get in the camera a little bit. So this is 4x mode with the VM33. Now you can see that in zoom mode, this camera looks really good, right? Really good. I'm actually very pleased with what it looks like. Now let me switch over to the Tail Air and let me get it zoomed in, and I'll do the same thing. It'll be 4x. Get it in here, and I'm using the OBSbot app for this. So now you can get an idea of what 4x zoom is. Now this is 4x zoom on the Tail Air. Now keep an eye in mind, now this is digital zoom, not optical zoom. That's the big difference with the VM33. This right here, the VM33, this is optical zoom. With the Tail Air, this is the max digital zoom, so you should notice a difference. I would expect that the VM33 should look better, more sharper image than the Tail Air is. The Tail Air, that's one of the major weaknesses I think with Tail Air is its zoom, and I think that's why NearStream wanted me to compare. This is the big thing that people are looking for, is they're looking for a nice optical zoom that they can use. Now, I've used this extensively in church as a back of auditorium camera, and use the optical zoom out to 8x is about all I really need to get an optimal shot for what I use for our live stream. And hey, I mean, it works really well, as you can see in these clips here. Now, another mode that both of these cameras have in common is the ability to pass over microphone audio, built-in microphone audio over Wi-Fi. Okay, so I'm sending in Wi-Fi NDI right now. Both cameras are using their built-in microphones. Now, the difference between the VM33 compared to the Tail Air is the VM33 has an 8-array microphone, but both are set to default general settings, so they're probably picking up room noise and all that. And I'm switching in between each camera so you can kind of hear the differences between the two, and I'll have a little label down below that you can see that. Then I also have my standard microphone that I always use for my recordings, just so you can hear the difference between what a nice microphone would have would sound like compared to what your camera's built-in microphone sound like. Now, I'm never a fan of using the camera microphones. It's just not my thing. But when you're, say if you're doing a live stream outside or something like that, and you don't have the ability to use an external mic, which both of these cameras allow you to do so, by the way, through their 3.5 millimeter jack. Keep that in mind. But apples to apples comparison, this is what both of their microphones sound like, so that you can determine which one you think sounds better. All right, this is another audio test of the Tail Air versus the VM33 using noise reduction that is built in for each of the cameras. Now, for the VM33, the only selection that you have is speech mode, which I think injects noise reduction. I do not know at what level that noise reduction is. In Tail Air, in OBSbot Center, you can select the level of noise reduction from weak to medium to strong. This is what they both sound like without auto gain control set, and I'm getting about the same level between the two. Actually, NearStream's a little bit stronger than the Tail Air. This is what they sound like with their respective noise reduction, so you can determine which one you think sounds better. All right, let's talk about some of the contrast between the Tail Air and the VM33. First of all, the Tail Air gives you a lot more inputs and output functionality. The Tail Air, you can use USB, You can use HDMI. You can record to an SD card. You can use a 3.5 millimeter to input and output a audio for a microphone. You can also use SRT. You can use Wi-Fi. You can use NDI. You can use virtual camera through the app to display the Tail Air. With the VM33, you get a couple options. You get USB, which you could use for, a UVC device. You can use over USB, or you can use the Wi-Fi. Now, Wi-Fi will work one of two ways. You can either use the NDI function that goes into a broadcast software like OBS, or you can use direct Wi-Fi to your phone. Okay. So that is the options that you have. So that is a big difference. This Tail Air gives you a lot more functionality. RTSP, SRT, HDMI, USB, and with that USB, and this actually applies to both, with the USB, you can use PoE Ethernet to do the NDI functionality. Again, with both of these, you have to use the manufacturer's personal Ethernet to USB dongles, and they both vary in price. Like I said, I think the VM33 is $150, and the OBSbot Tail Air I think is right around $60. So, but they both operate basically the same way. Another contrast between both of these cameras, obviously, just physically, you can look at the two and they're just different. One's a PTZ camera, that being the Tail Air. It's a mechanical PTZ camera with AI tracking that is quite functional. You can do human tracking, you can do animal tracking, you can do object tracking, you can do hand tracking. I mean, it'll track anything, and it does a really good job, and it gives you 150 degrees of tracking capability by default. There is an optional charger that you can buy in 360 degree mount that will give you 360 degree rotation, and it gives you an additional battery life of, I think, an additional 5 hours or so.
It makes me wonder what happened here.
Another contrast between the two, and this is one that I have to give to the VM33, is battery life in general. By default, the battery life for the VM33 is about 4 times as much. You get up to 8 hours with the VM33, where the max I've seen with the Tail Air is right at 2 hours. Usually it's a little less than that. So if you're going to be live streaming beyond an hour and a half, you have to consider an external power source to give the Tail Air that extra time to be able to be used in your live stream. The VM33, I've actually used it for 2 full services on one charge, no issues at all, and it still had about 25 to 30% battery charge. So keep that in mind. That's another big difference between the two. Another contrast between the Tail Air and the VM33, namely the VM33, you cannot control the camera when in NDI mode. In NDI mode, with the Tail Air, you can connect to it, you can control it, you can change image properties, and not lose the signal in your broadcast software. But with the VM33, you have to disable NDI mode in your mobile app, then connect to the camera on your phone, change the settings, which you're having to use your phone to determine, what you're changing and to see if that's going to be adequate or not, and then bring up NDI mode, which will then disable the controls on the phone and then bring it back up in your broadcast software. That's a big issue, and that may be a game breaker for a lot of people. I would love to see NearStream actually enable so that you can connect through Bluetooth while in NDI mode and be able to control the camera functions such as zoom, such as saturation, contrast, that sort of thing, and that you can adjust on the fly and not lose your NDI feed to your broadcast software. So in NearStream, if you're hearing me on this, I would appreciate being able to do that. I think that's a great thing that you should be able, I would consider you should be able to do that without any major changes. It should be just a firmware update, I would think. That's it, guys. If you got any questions, please comment below. Also, I would love to know what your thoughts are on both of these cameras and which one you would pick for your own broadcast. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. And again, NearStream, thank you for sending me the VM33. I've been using it in different scenarios, and it's been a lot of fun. learning about it and figuring out how to best use it within my own workflow. So thank you again for that. I appreciate it. I do have one more video coming out on the NearStream VM33, and that will be how to use it with its app. Okay, so if you got any questions, again, please comment below. Other than that, make sure you hit the like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell for notifications. You'll know when I have a video that goes live. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate it. We'll see you later.